Hello, I'm Glenn Waldrop, and this is Meet the Candidates. And of course, as always, this is your opportunity as a potential voter in Frankfort and Franklin County to hear from the people asking to represent you in office. And in this particular case, we're met by a candidate running in the Democratic primary for the United States Senate, and it's Jeff Kender. And Mr. Kender, thank you so much for coming in and being a part of the program.
Oh, thank you, Glenn, for having me.
Always really a pleasure to have candidates come in, and of course this is your opportunity to hear from all the candidates running for local office, and in this case, the U.S. Senate. They all come in, they do a 30-minute program, they get the same questions, they get the same opportunities to answer, and then you get that chance to go back, watch all the shows, make an informed decision, and go to the polls on May 17th. And of course, we hope that you will do that. But as we said, we have Jeff Kender with us, and Jeff, you're not from this area, but running for an office like the U.S. Senate, you're traveling around a lot. So maybe take this opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself, give a little background.
Well, great. My name's Jeff Kender. I'm a 40-year-old single father. I'm presently a United Steelworker. I work 12-hour shifts, and I'm running this campaign in between my work. I come from a lot of generation of coal miners. My father was a United Mine Workers member, and my grandfather. I went to Morehead State University. I'm a graduate from Morehead State University in Rowland County, Kentucky. And I'm from Phelps, Pike County, the eastern part of Kentucky. And I'm running in the U.S. Senate because I want to give the people a voice. I feel like for far too long that everyone has just been totally locked and blocked out of the system, and I want to be that voice for the people, Glenn.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit and get into the sort of the nuts and bolts of this campaign and some of the issues that are out there. And I think one of the first things to talk about is you're running as there are 7 of you running in the Democratic primary.
That's correct.
To take on the winner of the Republican primary that is currently a seat being held by Rand Paul, who is, of course, running for re-election. And when you look at the state of Kentucky of late, it's been trending very conservative if you look at the voting. I mean, obviously, when you look at the most recent gubernatorial race, it was won by Governor Bevin, who's a Republican. The state Senate is Republican. There's talk that the state House may be voted or overturned to Republican. If that being said, what is it that makes Jeff Kender a candidate that people will stop that trend and vote Democrat and vote for you to get you in office?
Okay, Glenn. This is what I believe the problem is, and this is why I believe that Kentucky has been trending Republican. The National Democratic Party has turned a lot of focus toward climate change, the Second Amendment, and immigration. The state party has followed along with the national party. Now, Kentucky is a coal-producing state. 90% of our electricity comes from coal. Now, 40-some% of our country's energy comes from coal. So Kentucky is a pro-coal state, and our national leaders, Democratic establishment, has been against climate change. There have been a lot of talk about the Second Amendment and immigration. So our state leaders has followed that marching path, and they have totally lost the Democratic Party. John Yermuth, he's the only representative that we have in the Democratic Party that represents all Kentucky from Louisville. So that is the problem. Now, I'm a strong supporter of our Second Amendment. So I feel like when I win the primary in May and face Rand Paul in November, that's not going to be a question. I've been raised in a gun environment, a lot of hunters in my family. I'm not a hunter myself. I like to view nature, but I mean, all my friends are hunters, and I believe in open carry. So no, he's not going to get me on Second Amendment. He's not going to get me on coal. I've seen many of my friends move from Pike County to other parts of the state and other parts of the country because of the job losses in the coal industry. And as far as immigration, some people call my plan radical, Glenn, but I'm for going to immigration by need system. So that's a little a little bit different according to our economy needs.
Right, and we'll get into those. We'll get
Yeah.
into you've hit a lot of topics that we're going to talk about, so we'll get a
Yes.
chance to delve back into that. But one of the things you mentioned was the state following the national party. And obviously at this time of the year when not only, of course, you're running for the U.S. Senate and many other races, but the presidential race that's going on right now, many people choose to go ahead and support someone and endorse a candidate. I've offered this question to the folks that are sitting in that seat. Have you decided on who you may support or endorse as president in this particular race, whether Democrat or Republican?
Well, Glenn, personally, I am leaning toward one of the candidates, but I feel like I'm running a campaign myself, and I've got supporters that supports Senator Sanders and Mrs. Clinton,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got friends that supports Republican candidates. I don't want my opinion to influence my supporters' opinion, and also Senator Sanders and Mrs. Clinton, neither one has endorsed me. So if they want
That's
to get involved in this Senate campaign in Kentucky, which should be important to them,
Right.
because the Senate's important. If they really want to get involved, here's a challenge. If they can get this, check us out and see.
Well, that was as fair an answer as I can think of, so I appreciate it. And a lot of folks don't like to talk about their vote, but it's just an opportunity. Many people are curious, as running for the Senate, how people feel about the presidential race, and that's fair enough. We'll get into some of these other issues, and you've touched on a couple of them, but we'll get back into it a little bit. You mentioned about Kentucky being a coal state. Obviously, this area is very dependent on coal-fired plants to provide affordable energy to the people of Kentucky. The current administration, many people feel, have made it difficult for coal-fired plants to operate, and mandates have been put in place by the current administration, in many people's opinion, that have hamstrung that so much that it's hard to make coal a reliable and affordable energy source for the people of Kentucky. If you are elected, not only in this primary, but are eventually a part of the Senate, what would you bring to the table to say, that we still want affordable and reliable energy in Kentucky, and is coal the answer?
We have still got to use coal, Glenn, because we haven't got anything to replace it right now anyway. And it is a disgrace that our country imports coal from China when we got coal here also. Now, I agree with the statement that the current administration has been way too hard on coal. I feel like there has been an overreach of the EPA, and we was asked in a debate that we had Thursday night, there were 6 candidates that showed up, who we voted for in the last election, and we all said that we voted for President Obama. But I don't think everybody got all the hope and change that they wanted in this administration, and it has really crippled the coal industry in Kentucky. So I will fight the overreach of the EPA. And we do have to go to all the above energy approach. We have to use everything we got, natural gas, solar, wind, biofuels, whatever. But I'm into maybe start a hemp initiative and start using hemp as energy also, and for many other things. So that's something that I've talked about that none of the other candidates has talked about, is Kentucky is starting to look at hemp and use hemp at some university levels and research, and there is a fortune to be made, Glenn, because there's land everywhere, and it's so easy to grow, and it can be used, and it can put people back to work. But as far as coal goes, there has been overreach of the EPA, and we do need to use coal, but we also got to hold them accountable for any environmental mistakes they may make. But there has been an overreach, and we got to support the coal industry while we got it. It won't be around forever with new inventions and new types of energy sources that come along. But for right now, there's no use of people sitting at home not being able to feed their families because they've lost a job. And that coal job is there for them to get, but because of the EPA, they're not able to go to work that day.
Let's move on and talk about one of the other topics that's been discussed a lot in the last couple of years, unfortunately, and it's in incidents involving shootings, guns. You mentioned that you support the Second Amendment, but let's get a little bit farther on that. And what is your stance on gun control, though? What legislation would you support or introduce if put into the Senate that would help maybe solve some of these issues that are currently out there with gun control?
I think education of the youth is really a good thing that we could do as far as gun control, especially with all the horrible mass shootings that we've had at school. But as far as banning guns and putting new legislation, I haven't got any gun control legislation. Like I said, I really don't. I've been around guns my whole life. People kill people. Guns don't kill people. There's many different tragedies that horrible people uses, bombs, explosions, whatever. And I think that the Republicans use gun control as a scare device and a scare tactic to win elections. I think most Democrats aren't really as anti-gun as the Washington establishment makes that agenda.
Another topic that is along that line, you talked about other devices besides guns that are used, and when you look at our borders and outside of it and throughout the world now, and you talk about ISIS, you talk about Iran and their development of nuclear weapons, North Korea as well, these outside influences are becoming more and more volatile, more and more brazen about how they would like to potentially attack the United States. And many people's opinion is that an issue that we need to look at very closely. As a senator, what would be your stance in dealing with these outside terror threats to the United States and our allies?
You got to be strong, Glenn. And the person who'll probably be our opponent is Rand Paul. Let's be realistic. He's probably going to be a Republican nominee. And everyone called him a dove. Okay, he's known as on weak national security. But you got to be strong. First of all, total border security. We got to have a strong border. We got to know who's coming in and out of this country. And our immigration system has been messed up since the 80s. You see the right and the left arguing, but nothing ever gets done. And it's a big issue in today's politics in every level. Mm-hmm. So I would even go for an immigration by need system. And it's different than any Senate candidate has put forward, and different than any member of the Senate has put forward that's presently serving in the United States Senate. We have a jobs report every month that comes out that tells us what our unemployment is, and it tells us in what areas that we need work. And if we would do a target immigration just by what jobs we need, such as engineers, doctors, surgeons, even field workers, every part of our economy, and we go by immigration system by what our economy needs. Now, we don't put people in jobs in a certain job and say you have to go to this job. We just say, hey, there's a need, say, in the South for engineers. You might want to check out Texas. You might want to check out Kentucky. There's engineers that need, and those people can be guided toward the region. And I know it's a totally different immigration, but with ISIS, we are under attack by radical Islam. We don't even know what kind of sleeper cells that they got planted all over the country. That's what happened before 9/11. So we need to know who's in the country. We need to know we need to vet the people's coming into the country better, and we need to have a very strong border and port security. So I feel like if we done that, and I am for E-Verify, let's punish companies that hire illegal workers and punish them good, and that will help our problem also.
So we've touched on both the potential threat of people outside our borders and immigration. It moves on. We have a couple of different topics to touch on. Education. Obviously, education starts at the local level with the local school boards and county and state governments. But in your opinion, and if elected to the U.S. Senate, what do you believe should be the federal government's responsibility in helping fund educational programs, and do you have a way to fund it?
Yes. First of all, we got to tax our millionaires and billionaires a little bit more. The greatest job that I've ever had has been a substitute teacher. I was a substitute teacher for 8.5 years, and for 2.5 years, I was an everyday physical education teacher. We got to invest in health education. We got to bring physical education back to our classrooms. A big thing in my campaign is I'm for slashing foreign aid drastically. We send money, Glenn, to Middle Eastern countries that uses the money for God knows what. If we can't take care of our own citizens, and that goes from our homeless, that goes to our veterans, that goes to our VA, but especially our school. Our children are our future. I have an 11-year-old son, and I want him to get the best education possible. And if anybody knows education that's in this race, I do, because I've sat in the classroom. I've had the 30 little kindergarten kids looking up at me. And let me tell you, Glenn, trying to control 30 little ones is a challenge.
Herding cats.
Yes, and I respect our teachers. They got such a hard job, and they're not really paid like they should be. I'm the strongest union candidate in this race. I'm a United Steel worker. My dad's a retired United Mine worker. And like I said, I've been in that classroom, Glenn. And I know that our teachers need support. Our public education needs funding. And if we can't give our kids a quality education, what does that say about us as a country? And yes, Rand Paul and some of Mitch McConnell and some of those guys can say slash the budget all they want. But no, we need to increase funding in education. Tax the millionaires and the billionaires. Tax the Koch brothers. You know, it's pure, easy economics. You don't starve a country by slashing the budget. You invest in the future, and the children are our future, and let's give the help to the teachers that teach our children.
One last topic that has been talked about since really the first election involving the current President Obama. It's gone through. We've heard about it a lot here in Kentucky with the Connect program with Governor Beshear. It's been talked about now potentially being changed in the state level here by Governor Bevin, and it still gets talked about on Capitol Hill a lot down in D.C., and of course it's the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. In your opinion, and if elected, would you try to support the program as is? Do you have ways that you think you would tweak it to improve the overall health care of the citizens of the United States?
Well, I'll tell you, Glenn, I watched as everyone else watched as this bill got passed. And I really don't believe that the bill was completely read by hardly anyone. I believe that the insurance companies got some backdoor deals that is not really good for the citizens. As of any bill, I believe that it can be improved. I would not support to repeal it, but I would sit down and work to improve it. Things like pre-existing conditions, that is a wonderful thing. And we got to take care of the children and our poor. And so I'm not for total repeal, but almost like any bill, Glenn, it can be made better. And like I said, I watched it just like the other citizens, and it got rushed in, and Republicans was showing a stack of papers how big it was, and I really don't think anybody fully comprehended it, and now they're seeing it, and in some ways it's good, but in some ways I see it can be improved. But I would have to sit and study that bill. Like I said, I don't even know if any senator or congressman completely read it line for line all the way through. So to tell you, no, I would not repeal it. It's a good start to a healthcare system that we need, but like any bill, it can be improved.
Every opportunity that we get, we like to get our viewers out there the chance to hear from folks running for office. That's what this show's all about, and we always finish every show the same way on Meet the Candidates. We allow the candidates that's taking the time to come in and talk to us to look into that camera and talk to the potential voters of Franklin County and tell them why they should be selected in the race that they're running. And in this case, it is Jeff Kender running in the Democratic primary for the United States Senate. Mr. Kender, take a moment to talk to the voters of Franklin County.
First of all, I'd like to thank you and this station for having me here. Voters of Franklin County, I care for you just as much as I care for my neighbor. I love being in Kentucky. I've been in Kentucky. I lived in Kentucky practically my whole life. I want to be your voice in Kentucky. Our campaign is called a Common Man campaign because 99.999% of us are common people. I will go to Washington and fight for you every day. That is all that I want to do, is represent the people of Kentucky. I want to make the United States the best that the United States can be. And if you elect me, you have my word. I will go every day with you on my mind to make Kentucky and the United States the best that it can be.
Thank you very, very much. This has been Meet the Candidates, and you have met the Democratic candidate in the primary, Jeff Kender, who is running along with 6 other people to represent you, and the winner then move on to take on the winner of the Republican primary in the general election. But of course, what we're talking about here is the primary election on May 17th. And Mr. Kender, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me, and thank your station.
My
it's
pleasure.
A great thing.
My pleasure. And we urge you all to watch all these candidate shows. We are to make an informed decision, and of course, go to the polls on May 17th. And after you vote, and after you vote on May 17th, we hope that you will tune in here at 7 p.m. and watch live election coverage as we do after every election. But until we see you on election night, I'm Glenn Waldrop. Thank you so much for watching, and please go to the polls.